Hoop Sisters, and today we're going to work on our block F6, which is in the lower right hand corner of the quilt. For block F6, these will be the fabrics and threads we'll use. We have our background fabric number 1, and for that we need a matching thread. We also need a contrasting thread. We have our stash fabric 2, which requires a matching thread with a bobbin, and it needs to have a contrast thread and then a contrast darker shade on fabric 2. For fabric 3 from your stash, we need a matching thread and a matching darker thread with a bobbin. Step number 1 for block F6 is to place a neutral color thread in your needle only and stitch out your block outline onto your battleizer. Step number 2 of block F6, we are going to place water-soluble thread in the needle only, and we're going to take our background fabric and fold it into quarters and clip a small hole in the center. Open it up, and then we'll place background fabric 1 over our battleizer. And with the water-soluble thread, you'll stitch your tack-down stitch. Block F6, we're finished up with stitching step 2, and now it's time to trim the inside. So we'll put our scissors inside the hole we made, and we will trim a scant 1/4 inch all the way around. Step 3 for block F6, we're going to place our thread 1 contrast in the needle only, and we're going to stitch our decorative stitch on fabric 1. Now we're going to do step 4 for block F6, and it's just going to stitch a little placement stitch for our next fabric. We are ready to do step 5 of block F6, so I'm going to take my fabric 3, I'm going to place it right side up over my placement stitch, and I'm going to put my thread 3 match in the needle, and I'm going to stitch the design. Step 6 for block F6, we're going to change our needle thread to the 3 match dark, so it's a darker shade than what we did previously, and we're going to stitch more decorative stitches. So here's step number 6 from block F6, and as you can see we have all our decorative stitching done. So now we're going to trim the excess fabric away, leaving about a scant 1/4 inch around this whole little flower in the center. So I've just trimmed around, this was step 6 of block F6, all the way around this design. Now I'm going to go on to step 7. I will need my fabric 2, which in my case is pink. I'm going to again fold it into quarters and clip a small hole in the center. I will place fabric 2 right side up right over the center of my block, and we're going to put our wash away thread in the needle, and it's going to stitch a tack down stitch. So here's step 7 totally stitched out from block F6, and hopefully you can see our wash away thread. In this block we're going to trim very close as if for applique along the outside edge and the inside edge. The hole we made in the middle and the inside will help us get our scissors in really close, as if you're doing an applique. So I'm finishing up trimming on the inside, so it revealed our center, and on the outside I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim very close as if for applique around this whole area. So for step 8 in block F6, we're going to put our thread 2 match in the needle only, and we're going to stitch our stem stitches. Step 9 for block F6, we're going to place thread 3 match dark in the needle only, and we're going to stitch stem stitches on these raw edges. Step 10 of block F6, we're ready to put our thread 2C in the needle only, and in this step, if you have the feature where you have a thread cutter, it's best to turn it off. Now we're ready to stitch step 11 of block F6, and we're going to place our thread 2C dark in the needle only, and we're going to stitch some more decorative stitches in these corners right here. We are now ready to do step 12 of block F6. So we're going to turn our hoop over, spray our block back with a little temporary spray adhesive, and stick it onto the back of the hoop with the right side facing out. And we will place water-soluble thread in the needle only, and we will stitch our back on. We are now ready to do step 13 on block F6, and we will place our thread 2 match in the needle and the bobbin, and it will do some of the quilting stitches. I have my hoop on the machine for step 13, and I'm going to draw my bobbin thread up to the top because we now have our quilt back on, and that will make a much nicer looking back. Step 14 for block F6, we will place our thread 3 match dark in the needle and the bobbin, and we will stitch the rest of our quilting around the center. So we have our finished block F6. Here would be the front and the back with all of our quilting, and it's time to trim it. And block F6 is in the lower right hand corner of the quilt, so it's a corner block. So I have to trim 2 of my edges 1/4 inch away from the basting stitch. So that's what I'll do with my regular quilting ruler through all layers. The other 2 layers, or other 2 edges, are trimmed with our trimmer by George. Trimmer by George has a nice little lip on it to protect the front of your fabric. So fold back the front of the fabric on the block, snug it up, lay it down, give it a little tug, and trim off the battleizer and the backing. And we do that again on the next side. Trim off the battleizer and the backing. And this is what the back looks like before I finish up my trimming. I need to trim this to 1/4 inch. So I'll use my regular quilter's ruler again, line up my 1/4 inch with my basting stitch. And I have a completely trimmed block, front and back.